You're listening to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast by RaderCo. I'm Marcey Rader, keynote speaker, consultant, and your host on high performance. In each bite-sized episode, I'll discuss topics like relentless prioritization, time and attention guardrails that stick, meeting makeovers, remote work, and sustainable habits you'll actually keep. Share this with your team or use it as pre-work before your next meeting. Ever take an assessment, read the results, and think, totally me? And then 5 minutes later, think, wait, who is this person? Same. I have done DISC, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinders. I can't even remember all the assessments I've taken. But I want to give some, my take after years of trial and error. And for you to think of the assessment, whatever kind you take, as the appetizer, but hiring a coach is the meal. And you will get the most benefit out of taking any assessment by hiring a coach to go through it with you. RaderCo has 2 StrengthsFinders coaches that I've personally worked with, and they have helped me translate buzzwords into behavior. And for any assessment I've taken, only when I've had a coach talk me through it was I really able to utilize it. And today I'm sharing what my top 5 StrengthsFinders results mean in real life, how they help and sometimes trip me up, and how you can turn your results into action. So my top 5 are learner, discipline, activator, maximizer, significance. Lesson 1. My top strengths are power tools. They build fast, but they can also break fast. So my learner plus activator, I am always reading, listening, taking courses. When I started my business, I had 0 business background. And the learner helped me ramp up quickly. Activator kept me from living in next chapter land. You know what I mean? Like when the book gives you an exercise and then you just go to the next chapter. Well, thankfully, the activator makes me actually do the things I'm reading. Where it can bite me is that learner can become consumption without application. And there have been times until I became aware of it that I would just jump to the next book or course and forget to do the thing. Activator helps, but I can still go past the part where results show up. And if this is you, a book that I read this year, Lean Learning by Pat Flynn, very good. And he talks about how, a lot of people will overlearn. They'll read until they think they know enough before they actually commit and do something. And his recommendation is to just do the thing, learn enough and then just start it. And so for me, I now pair learning with a tiny action inside 48 hours. So one concept, one experiment, one behavior, my learner gets fed, and my activator gets me focused. Another lesson is I don't have to learn everything, and maximizer buys me time. So Dawn, one of the strengths coaches, pointed out to me why I don't YouTube my way through fixing things or building things, even though I'm a learner. My husband, who I don't think is learners in his top 5, but he is always watching videos to learn how to do things around the house. He's super, super handy, and I never do that. And I was curious why. And she said, it's because I'm also a maximizer. If I'm only going to do it once, I hire it out. However, I learned to maintain. And so that's how I handle software, finance tools, systems. I always bring in a specialist to set it up And then I say, ask them, teach me the 20% or whatever I need to sustain. And it's also one thing that has made me more aware with my clients that, I want them to stop spending weekends building their website if all they need to do is maintain it. Unless they get a lot of value from that learning and building process. That is how my husband is. He feels good about himself knowing that he's figured out this problem. And so for him, if I said, don't learn how to build whatever, that would take something away from him. But for me, it's more about learning to maintain it. And it's not laziness, it's just maximizer math. And as a side note, if you ever want to get every last bit of peanut butter out of a jar, I will maximize the heck out of it. All right. Lesson 3. When under stress, your strengths can get loud and you need to add guardrails. So about 20 years ago, during a really hard couple of years in my life, the discipline aspect became a control panel. I scheduled everything. I traveled 48 weeks a year. I moved up from marathons and triathlons to Ironmans, 12 to 24 hour mountain bike races, 24 to 48 hour adventure races. And my life was scheduled to the minute. Every calorie counted, every calorie charted, calorie burned charted. And I even scheduled time to cry in the hotel. I would say, okay, I can cry between 5 and 6:30, and then I need to work. And whenever I've told people that, I've had a few say, there's no way you are depressed. If you can schedule when you can cry, you are not depressed. And Dawn, strengths coach, blew my mind one day when she reframed it and she said, yes, you were depressed. In stress, we overuse what we're good at sometimes. And for me, discipline took the wheel and activator and maximizer just floored the gas. And the guardrail I needed was not more willpower. It was recovery and perspective. And then something else on the Strength Finder. So when I got my full results, had I not had a coach talk this through with me, I would have been really upset. I was really upset in the beginning because empathy was at the bottom. It's like in my bottom 3. And that really stung because I'm a coach and I care about people and I care a lot. And sometimes I feel like I care more about people than they care about it themselves. But she said, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It means you don't carry it with you. And this is actually good for me for what I do. Because a lot of times my clients, especially in the beginning, they hire me because they're burned out, they're overwhelmed. They will often cry during the onboarding call. And, I can be there for them, with them. And then I'm also able to move on to the next client. And I'm the friend who will get you out of the burning building. Then I'll help you find a safe place to sleep and make a plan. But if you need a long cry and a couch, I can do that too. But it's not my strength. My default is action. So knowing this helps me, pair with high empathy humans. And my 3 of my 4 closest friends, empathy's in their top 5. One of them, it's their top 1. And sometimes I would feel like, I'm not upset enough. I'm not, and now I recognize that that's not what it is. So one other thing that's kind of hit me this year, or last year, I should say, is that when something is off, off in my life or in a relationship or with my health or whatever it is, I default to change. New book, new coach, new experiment. And I've always done that. And my husband, who has ADHD, he prefers more acceptance. And he wants to just be and, think about it. And I hired an ADHD coach last year, and she really helped me because she framed it as me, number one learner, always wanting to, learn new relationship books and personal development and all these things that I'm trying not, to make sure things don't stay stale and to maximize, like our relationship is great, but could it be even better? And I remember I signed up with this coach, a relationship coach a few years ago, and I said, my marriage is great, but I just know it can be even better. And she thought, okay, it was very strange for her. And so that is my default for me, not necessarily for others, but for me. And my husband, because he's more of an acceptance partner, that he sees that as, she thinks something's wrong, or, here she goes again, trying something new. And so her framing it allowed me to see that, okay, this could make a relationship feel like a project, or it could make him feel like a project. And I was like, okay. Are we problem solving or just naming it? And thinking about that, even if maybe you are someone, maybe you're a manager or a leader, and you're always wanting to change things up, and people don't know how to follow you because they think, okay, something's going to change. We're going to do this for a little bit, and then we're going to go to this. Where is that need for change coming from? Is it because you're bored? Is it because you are trying to maximize and you think that things can always be better? And are there times where you need to just chill and let things be? And that was really kind of eye-opening for me. And, also thinking that your project teammate may be an acceptance partner who stabilizes the team. And your product lead might be a change partner who keeps momentum. And so, some tactical takeaways through all of this is pair every new idea. If you are in that learner mode and you are always reading and trying new things, pair it with one micro action in the next 48 hours. Because if it lives only in a notebook, it doesn't count. And then decide, either build, buy, or maintain. If it's a one-time build, maybe you hire it, but then you learn the 20% to sustain. Unless you are someone who gets a lot out of the building process. And then, by all means, go for it. And then also use a strengths under stress check. So, which top talent might get too loud when you're taxed? Name it and then add a guardrail around it. In my reflections episode, I talked about how one thing I would have done differently, or what I did too much of, is micromanage my husband managing the kitchen renovation. And I am a very organized person. And that's where, as our kitchen just kept becoming more and more of a fiasco, I became more and more stressed and I overmanaged. So now, looking back, actually, I'm just realizing this now as I'm doing this podcast, because I just record this one time. I don't go back and edit. I'm realizing that's exactly what I was doing, because the more of a fiasco it got, the more on his case I got. So there we go. Also ask, do you want change or acceptance with your partner, friend, or team before you fire hose them with help? And one woman a few years ago in a mastermind I was in, and she got this from someone else. I don't know who it came from, but she said to ask, do you want to be heard, helped, or hugged? And that was huge for me. As a coach, I used to be much more likely to jump in to help. But not everybody wants to be helped. Sometimes they just want to be heard. And when I think about myself, that's me a lot of times. I just want you to hear me. I don't need advice. And then also, that low empathy doesn't mean no empathy. If you are an action-first person, show you care by doing. And then practice a short carry and release. I think about animals and the stress response and how they literally will shake their body to get rid of the stress. And so what is something you can do to shake out that and release it? And then also just debrief any assessment you get with a coach. Don't DIY the interpretation. The nuance is the value. So, if you want to turn any assessments you have into action, and especially if you're interested in Strengths Finders, we have 2 RaderCo coaches that can run a team workshop or do one-to-one debriefs. And when our coach Dawn gets hired to do a Strengths Finder workshop, I go to them at my own expense because I love watching what plays out and what the teams discover about themselves and watch her in action. I absolutely love it. And I just know you will too. And, she can help, our coaches can help translate your top 5 into real behaviors, guardrails, and next steps. So you can reach out and we'll set you up. And before I close out, I want to remind you that Reclaim Your Workday 8-week Action Club is beginning in March, and we will be walking through each chapter of the book for 8 weeks. So there are 8 chapters. We have focus and attention, email and chat management, task and project management, remote and hybrid work, vacation and time off, and we will have a 45-minute group session for each of those chapters where we do a 10-minute summary or TLDR of each chapter, and then we have hot seats where 4 to 5 people can submit their questions about themselves or their team or their company, and we will go through and hot seat each of those people. And then at the end, we will each have a commitment, and it doesn't have to be public, but a commitment of an action that we will do before the next week. You can sign up at reclaimyourworkday.com/action-club. Thanks for listening to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast. Show notes link to every tool and takeaway. If you got value, subscribe, leave a review, and pass it along to your team. For more bite-sized tools and ways to work with RaderCo, whether through consulting, coaching, or speaking, visit HelloRaderCo.com.